It's going to be very interesting to see which villains Insomniac chooses to include in their third and potentially final entry in their Spider-Man trilogy. There's a lot of villains who probably won't be returning because they're dead, like Kraven and Scorpion. And there's a host of characters that probably won't show back up because they've been redeemed. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for Tombstone or Lizard to be a threat in Spider-Man 3. There are, however, a lot of villains that Insomniac could still use, including some that they haven't used yet, like Alistair and Spencer Smythe and their Spider Slayers, Hydro Man, Molten Man, the Jackal, Hobgoblin, and I think many of those are characters worth discussing in a future video, but today I want to focus on characters who have been established in Insomniac's games that I think will return in a villainous capacity. Let's start with one of the big ones, Otto Octavius. Spider-Man 2018 ended with Otto being taken to the raft. He had revealed that he knew Peter's identity and offered to keep the secret if Spider-Man let him off the hook and kept him out of prison. Spider-Man was more concerned about the safety of the city than his own, so he declined. In the post-credits scene of Spider-Man 2, Otto made it very clear that he was writing some kind of final chapter, which is likely a revenge plan against the Spider-Men. I doubt that it was the final chapter of a romance novel he's working on. I've really got to hand it to Insomniac here. I am kind of on the edge of my seat to see what they're going to do with Doc Ock. They've done a great job of setting up this idea of him being a returning threat, but they haven't really given away what his plan is. They've teased and alluded to certain things without giving us a full answer. Is he going to be a physical threat? Is he going to don the symbiote and become Monster Ock? Is he going to try and infiltrate Peter's brain like in Superior Spider-Man? Or is he going to clone Peter and inhabit that body with the help of the Jackal? Is he just going to be a very intellectual threat, maybe still working out of the raft, but giving Norman Osborn all the information he needs to successfully get revenge on the Spider-Men? And what's he going to do with Peter's identity? Is he going to leak it to the press? Is he going to clone the Sinister Six and tell them Peter's identity so they can hunt his allies? Or is he going to just keep it to himself and use it to his own advantage? Personally, like I said, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm excited to see what you're cooking, Insomniac. Next up, we have Carnage. Now, Cletus Cassidy took a symbiote at the end of his side mission in Spider-Man 2, teasing his return as the red symbiote himself, Carnage. This is obviously a major Spider-Man villain that could be promoted into the main story. He was only a side mission in Spider-Man 2, and I could see him playing a major role in Spider-Man 3, but I can't help but wonder, would he maybe distract from Otto Octavius and Green Goblin, who are being established as the main villains of this third piece? In that case, I could see him returning as a side mission. Maybe the Flame side mission will return and we'll get to take him on with Yuri Watanabe, aka Wraith once again, or maybe he'll be the cold open to the game. Maybe he'll be the equivalent of the Sandman or Rhino boss fight at the beginning of Spider-Man 2 and Miles Morales, respectively. That would certainly be a way to open Spider-Man 3 with a bang, but in any case, I hope that they don't just forget about this subplot. Even if he returns in a spin-off game between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, this is a story arc that I feel we need to see the conclusion to. I really don't want to see some of these characters that have been established getting the treatment that Hush got in Batman Arkham Knight, where he got this really cool setup in Arkham City, but when it came time for Rocksteady to make Arkham Knight, they totally fumbled the next chapter of that character. Please do not make Carnage a one-hit takedown, Insomniac. Next, we have another character that I really don't want to see Insomniac waste, and that is the Chameleon. The potential for this character is through the roof, and there's a lot that you could do here. You could have the Chameleon impersonating Spider-Man and committing crimes, and maybe the whole city of New York thinks that Spider-Man is evil and under the influence of the symbiote again, but really it's just Chameleon. We could get a quick boss fight where it's Spider-Man versus Spider-Man, then you unmask him as Chameleon, and that's the end of it. And honestly, even that doesn't sound like it would hit the full potential of this character to me. I think Chameleon should play a major role in the main story. One of the best plot twists of the Batman Arkham games was the reveal that Joker in Arkham City was actually Clayface for most of the game. Clayface was impersonating Joker for much of the story, and to see something similar done here would be incredible. Imagine learning that Albert Moon is actually being impersonated by the Chameleon. Maybe the real Albert Moon is being held hostage somewhere or was killed, and you could have the Chameleon impersonating Albert Moon hurt or kill Rio Morales. You could have Harry Osborn return, seemingly having woken up from his coma and help Peter with his plans as Spider-Man, only for it to be revealed that it's actually the Chameleon having been hired by Norman Osborn to learn what Spider-Man's plans are. I really want to see them take full advantage of this character, as he hasn't been utilized much in the mainstream, and I think this game could really change that and show the full potential of this character. Now, what about some of the characters who did survive the events of Spider-Man 1? I'm talking Silver Sable, Screwball, and Taskmaster. Well, I could see Taskmaster returning, especially since Mysterio probably won't be offering up challenges for the Spider-Men in Spider-Man 3, since he is a reformed villain. But Taskmaster could certainly return for a rematch with the Spider-Men this time around, and that would be a cool character to see again. But I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know that this is a character we need to see return, but I certainly wouldn't be opposed to seeing another round with him. I think Insomniac has learned their lesson with Screwball. I think if she does return in Spider-Man 3, it will almost be in a cameo capacity to be played off as a joke. I doubt that they will try to utilize her in the same way that they used her in the base game or The City That Never Sleeps, where she's giving you challenges. That is one of the aspects of the first game that people weren't crazy about. People found Screwball annoying, and her tone didn't really fit the tone of the story. Silver Sable actually is a character that I do think probably will return, but not in a villain capacity. We have seen her and Spider-Man at odds a lot in the first game and in The City That Never Sleeps, but by the end of Silver Lining, they had pretty much become allies. So while I suppose it is possible that she'll come back in some kind of villainous capacity or in a way where she and Spider-Man are at odds with one another once again, I just don't think that's the case. I think she's going to return as an ally and maybe help you with a side mission or perhaps help in the main story in some capacity. Maybe her father Silvermane will be involved, maybe there'll be another threat from Symkaria, but I do think seeing more of Silver Sable and this plot thread of the war in Symkaria is extremely likely. This war has been mentioned in every single game, and it's been discussed at length, so to not see it play a role in Spider-Man 3 at all would be very strange. In short, I fully expect this war in Symkaria to bleed into the main story of Spider-Man 3, or at least some of the side missions, and I totally expect to see Silver Sable at some point in the game. Black Cat is another character that I suppose could show up, but I felt like we saw the end of her story with her leaving for Paris, and I don't know that she'll be back. But a character from the first Spider-Man game that I do think will return is Kingpin. I think it's easy to forget how big of a role Kingpin has in the Insomniac universe, because he was the first boss fight that we faced, it was the end of an era for Spider-Man, but we tend to forget that he was the main villain for Spider-Man for 8 years prior to the events of the first game. Personally, I think he fits the tone that they seem to be going for with the returning villains that will likely appear. Revenge on the Spider-Men. Everyone from Otto Octavius to Norman Osborn, who we'll talk about in just a minute, really hates the Spider-Men and wants revenge on them. This is likely going to be the biggest threat for our heroes because, frankly, there are no ulterior motives this time. Otto Octavius is not trying to break out of the raft because he wants to rob a bank. Norman Osborn is probably not taking the Green Goblin serum to become a better exotic dancer. And Wilson Fisk himself is probably not interested at this point in trying to get his construction business back off the ground. No, the thing that all of these characters have in common is that they want to kill Spider-Man. One thing I do think will be interesting to see is if characters like Wilson Fisk and Norman Osborn work together and try to collaborate as they kill the Spider-Men, or if they will sort of oppose each other and each want their own revenge and kind of be fighting a war amongst themselves as they also try to take out the Spider-Men. If I had to guess, I'd say that they're probably going to team up. I think their hatred for the Spider-Men is going to allow them to set aside any qualms they have with each other and focus singularly on killing these characters that they feel have wronged them. Wilson Fisk is clearly a character who has a lot of resources and has a lot of hatred for Spider-Man, so to see him return would fit that theme perfectly. And now, let's talk about the big one. Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. There is basically no doubt that the Green Goblin will be the main villain of Spider-Man 3, or at least within the top 2 villains of Spider-Man 3. And like with Otto Octavius, it is going to be interesting to see what his plot is. Obviously, it's going to be to kill the Spider-Men or kill the people they love the most, but I am curious to see how he does it. Is he going to try to turn everyone into goblins? Is he going to get a hold of Kurt Connor's lizard serum and use that on people? Is he going to just want to do it himself and not hire any underlings to potentially take out the Spider-Men? Does he want to do it with his own bare hands? And are we going to see a more tech-based goblin or a more ultimate goblin that feels more genetically altered? Maybe we'll get a mix of both. Maybe he'll start as a really tech-based villain, and as this goblin serum takes over, he starts to become more and more physically monstrous. Whenever the Green Goblin shows up in media for Spider-Man, there is always the question of if he is going to somehow take out someone close to Peter, or maybe in this case Miles Morales or Cindy Moon. Is Albert Moon at risk? Is Rio Morales at risk? Is MJ at risk? I have a feeling that we're going to see an absolutely ruthless Norman Osborn in this third and potentially final game, and it will likely be the biggest threat that these characters have yet faced. I sincerely could see Peter sacrificing himself or losing the battle at the end of this one. I do find it interesting how underused the Green Goblin has been in Spider-Man video games in the past. He's shown up in some of the movie tie-ins when Green Goblin has appeared in the corresponding films, but outside of that, he really isn't utilized as much as characters like Venom. I am very curious to see Insomniac's take on him, and I am just excited to get him in another AAA Spider-Man game at long last. I look forward to the boss fight we have with him. Maybe it'll be a dual boss fight with him and Otto Octavius, or maybe a tri-boss fight with him, Otto Octavius, and Carnage. In any case, I do think this series is going to go out with a bang. I'm excited to see the Green Goblin and the other returning characters. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a video discussing characters who haven't been used yet who could show up. Also, feel free to let me know which villains you are most excited to see in the next Insomniac Spider-Man game. Thank you all so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we will see you guys in the next one.